somebody that has, tried to keep up a certain appearance for their whole life, and then all of a sudden they start to, one thing at a time. Maybe it's the clothes aren't new anymore.
You start looking like Carrot Top at a kid's birthday party.
They don't brush their teeth.
Right.
Little things like that. They're starting to kind of decline. That's when
it looks like he's given up. It looks like he's starting to give up. Like he's tired of doing his hair, tired of doing the makeup and stuff because it doesn't.
And in all honesty, I know this man is living on another planet, but at some point, the things that he has put himself in, the situations he's put himself in, has to get to him at night.
Absolutely.
It has to get to him, and what is possibly going to happen to him and what he's facing. As much as he tries to strongman his way through it and say bluster and he doesn't care and yada yada, at some point it's got to take its toll. Regardless.
That's absolutely right. Oh wait, the stream finally came on after all this. It just decided to wake up. I was literally about to. Yeah. Oh my God! Could it be possible? That's amazing. All right. Anyways, we'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million, and of course our dear friend Boston Brian with us for the hour because it's a holiday and we need some cheer. It's his birthday. That's right. I have no idea why it just decided to come on its own. That's just odd.
A lot of the things that happen with this equipment is on.
But it keeps saying it's still skipping frames, and but it went down.
It's kind of lagging. I got a TV right next to me, kind of watching it, and it's just behind.
All right,
it's up.
That's normal. As long as it's it'll be up. It'll be off by even a minute sometimes. But as long as it's fluid, I don't care.
You like the new mic? I had to get one that didn't affect the green screen because the other one had the lights in it that
you could see through it.
The green screen on it.
I can't see it. Is it the Elgato?
No, it's just it's a cheaper. I don't even know how to say the name. Five something.
Okay.
5 pine or something like that.
Gotcha.
It's nothing major, but it's a lot heavier and more substantial than the last plastic one that I had.
Good stuff.
So hopefully
it sounds really good.
But I don't know what the correct volume would be. I have it in the middle right now. Just I don't know if it sounds good.
Middle works for me. Okay.
Sounds great. Okay. It's not clipping.
Thank you. I'm trying.
All right. And
little by little.
2 minutes.
Yep.
Thank you. And that pop filter is just covered with saliva. What do you do? It's insane.
This just came out of the box 42 seconds ago.
I know. It shouldn't have come out of the box covered with saliva.
It's already slathered.
Yeah, it's not a drool cup.
Oh,
so I was reading about. I'm sure you already have stuff to talk about, but the memo that the Trump lawyers put in, the 4.5-page memo, they just put in. Glenn Kirshner was talking about with Brian Tyler Cohen, and it is. He normally says he doesn't tell people to read these things, but he wants people to read this one because it's literally just no facts, not citing any case law whatsoever. It's basically just a Donald Trump speech that they put into the court evidence, basically.
Right. Yeah. This is the one to try and I guess stop the gag order or whatever.
He literally said it didn't have a mission, didn't have any facts in it.
Thank you.
It was like a rant. It said, that the Biden administration is, the whole thing about taking down its opponents for political purposes.
Right. Yeah, trying to find from launching attacks on prosecutors.
And there's also a Bloomberg article that Donald Trump posted to Truth Social that I think you'd get a kick out of, talking about his trying to give him props actually for his properties and his golf courses, saying that he's probably undervalued some and overvalued some, but it's really not anything big.
Oh, he loves that.
Right.
He posted it, I think, yesterday in his Truth Social, but I think you'd get a kick out of it. And Stephen Miller was on with Donald Trump Jr. On his show Triggered, so there's a few clips on that.
The Jason
stand by.
The Jason what's his name story.
I know I'm only on 1 day a week. I get it. I'm gonna have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the House Bar Show. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the House Bar Show. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Donald Trump sent a Thanksgiving message, though, last night. And by the way, hi, everybody. Welcome to the stream. I don't know why it decided to wake itself up. I didn't change a thing. It just decided to come alive. So fingers crossed it will stay that way. And I guess maybe maybe Jim Jordan and the Republicans here have set up a censor that, you know, and then they just went to get a turkey leg and you know, I slipped by. Who knows?
Sure.
But Donald Trump sent out a message last night on Truth Social, where he said, "As we gather with our loved ones, we gave thanks to Almighty God for His many blessings, including our families, our friends, our neighbors, and this extraordinary country we all call home." And then he started attacking, quote, the radical left lunatics that are trying to destroy our country.
Sure.
Can you even imagine the thought process to be like, you know what, I'm going to send out a happy Thanksgiving to everybody as I attack half or the majority of the political establishment in this country.
Yeah, well, the voting populace, just like, and by the way, the radical left lunatics that are trying to destroy our country, what he means is women. Let's be abundantly clear, because that's the voting group that is affecting his chances the most next year, and are why everybody have found a way to move on. Now, I know you want to bring something up, Boston Brian, the letter his lawyers wrote, and break that down for us a little bit, or just talk about it for a second. But one of the things that we've been watching his crowds fade over the last, I would say, 3 months in particular, since the first indictment. I mean, you can almost track it to that. I would argue that you absolutely can. And we've watched his sort of mental fade go down along with it, while everybody's trying to prop him up or run these Biden senile stories to try and give him a break and make it seem like all things are being equal. That while Joe Biden, again, calls the I guess the Prime Minister of Qatar and as his envoy to Hamas and says, unless you give us a list of the hostages you still have that are alive, we're no deal. And that was the turning point on the Hamas ceasefire that just happened, was predicated on Biden calling their bluff. Specifically, not Blinken doing it. Biden called him and said, this is the president calling. This is, you let us know who you've still got and whether they're alive and what shape they're in, or we'll just, tell we can't do anything to negotiate with the Israelis to get them to stop. Just don't.
So you're saying other nations do actually pick up the president's phone call when he calls?
Well, I mean, when they're done laughing, of course, because we are a laughing stock.
See, Donald Trump says nobody answers.
That's true, but he also says we're not respected in the world and that we're a laughing stock. Now, I would argue that some countries do laugh at us, but they laugh at us like Clark Griswold after he just found out he got the Jelly of the Month Club. And he's drinking the eggnog, going.
Just watched that. I just watched that.
It's good. Yeah.
He takes care of the knob on the stairs.
Yeah. Fix the newel post, honey. We needed a coffin, a tree. They're laughing like that. They're like, I don't know how the Americans keep doing it. Why do they still have a sound economy when all this is going on?
Clark, are you okay?
Honey, I'm fine. And then the squirrel scene, and we could just go off on that. But
the squirrel scene.
Oh,
I have a picture I'm going to send you of a Christmas tree my father put up one year in my house.
Oh dear!
And literally, we had a 7-foot sail, and it must have been a 13-foot tree. All it needed was a squirrel coming out of it.
Oh, it just leaned over like
in my house. All you can see is scrapes on the ceiling from the top of the tree where we bring it into the
best.
door to where we set it up.
And they were there for years. It's like nobody
God.
wants to get up there with a paintbrush, right?
Yeah, no, they were like a badge of honor,
right? So, is it Jason Miller? There's so many Millers in the Trump orbit, but his the guy who was on the outs who tried to force the stripper he had gotten pregnant to take an abortifacient. He snuck the abortion pill into her smoothie.
Jason is the one with the dark beard.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Yep.
their new AJ Delgado, who worked for the Trump campaign, is now has now basically filed suit against him for rape in and amongst her saying that she was fired for sex. She was discriminated because she was pregnant, primarily with his kid, with Jason Miller's kid. At the same time, he was trying to abort this other woman's child against her will. And that guy still works with Trump. If you look at these rallies, you might not see Stephen Miller around, and I do mean not see. You might not see Stephen Miller around, but you will always see. You will always see Stephen Miller hanging nearby. And again, this guy makes Corey Lewandowski look like Leo Buscaglia.
Or Matt Schlapp.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, let's talk about that. So CPAC.
It's amazing how they have so many of these examples that you can look to in a small group of people.
Yeah. So Matt Schlapp I think he has a law firm, Matt Schlapp and Tickle, if I'm not mistaken. But
Matt's on your lap.
Matt Schlapp apparently, groped a male aide that was driving him to and from events and whatnot, reached over, put his hand on the guy's crotch, and was fondling him during the drive while he was drunk and stuff. Now, considering the, let's say, legislative...
I'm listening.
Yeah, right. I've got Johnny's attention.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, look, it was an automatic. He has no excuse. It's like Lauren Boebert, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's right. I mean... Like I said, Lauren Boebert and her boyfriend, it looked like she was trying to operate a flight simulator that was made out of Play-Doh. But Schlapp, basically jumps this guy while the guy's got to drive him home. And this guy's, and again, this guy very well may be gay, and Schlapp's, gaydar might be right on point. That doesn't mean that this guy has to give in to his boss's urges, or that if he's not interested in this guy, he's just going to go with it anyways. There's a certain, anti-gay thought that that gay people are flippant about who they're with, and the idea that Schlapp would take advantage of that is particularly pernicious and disgusting. But you would think, because of their legislative agenda overall and their feelings about gay people, that just him kind of doing that would be enough to get him broomed from the conservative political action committee's board. Nope.
It's almost like they're hypocrites, Al. It's almost like they're hypocrites.
Almost. So close.
Dear God, man, I think you're on to something.
And you can tell by the text messages that he was sending in the morning to the guy that he knew he messed up.
Oh,
big
yeah.
time. You know what I mean? And honestly, for that not to have any effect, in his Republican circle, and for him to still be doing what he's doing, and like you said, Jason Miller to be doing what he's doing, it's just they have there's no morals, there's no value of character.
Honest to God, I think the only reason they let it slide is because he's victimizing a gay man.
Well, when you worship and immortalize a man that has many times been accused of SA on women, and has been credibly cited as being guilty for such,
brags about it, says it's been that way for millions of years, fortunately.
Right, is on recording telling you he's going to grab women by the crotch, and regardless of them, going into the Miss Universe contests or the backstage stuff. I mean, there's more examples than you can shake a stick at to not want to follow this man. But the thing is, the things that the people are doing behind him, it just that's the example he's setting. So if the person I worship is doing it, why is it bad if I do it?
Right.
So they just, there's no punishment. There's no. It's just, it's good. It's okay.
Right. At this point, I feel like the Republican Party would nominate Borat if he just didn't have an accent. I think the only thing they don't like about Borat is his accent. But the policies are pretty much right on point. I've been sort of catching up on the genius that is Sacha Baron Cohen lately, and it's amazing if you look back at kind of who you know, when he does, there's this one bit he did where he went to a country music bar and he sang the the Jew down the well song, you know, which is right, which is just like he starts off with my country has a problem. The problem is transport.
Was that maybe at a rodeo?
Yeah, it was in like the little sidebar. No. The rodeo. You're thinking of another thing. That's where he sang the national anthem, I think. But
oh right, okay.
Yeah, no, he sang at this little thing. But all the people there that start singing along with it and are kind of happy to hear him sing this, Trump voters across the board. Absolutely. Like every single one of those people, there is no question in my mind that if you went to a Trump rally, you'd go, hey, don't I know you? Like, yeah, a lot of people saw me singing in a movie. What movie was that? Borat. I was in the Throw the Jew Down the Well bar, and I was clapping and singing. Like that's
a great point that you bring up too. Because you get the Marjorie Taylor Greene with the Jewish space lasers she used to say. You got Donald Trump has many anti-Semitic things that he's been saying over the years. It's just for them to now somehow claim that they are, 100% pro-Israel is out of control.
Well, the irony that he's saying like, he sends Jared to do it because Jared's Jewish. That's 100% the reason why. It's like no one can negotiate with the Jews except you send a Jew or something. Is the idea? It's just that's how his brain works. And I mean, again, this is a man also who went apparently to either it was Mazars or the previous accounting company. The story is that he went there and he saw that they had black accountants, and he said, "I don't want black accountants working on my accounts.
I remember that.
I want the people with the small hats."
And he continues to say globalists, which we all know is
code
shorthand for Jewish people
behind
the scenes. And look, Midas Touch has done an unbelievable job lately, and a lot of newspapers have picked up on it. The rhetoric coming from his speeches, and I know it's not Donald Trump writing these things. I know it's not him putting these in his speeches. It's Stephen Miller. It's other people that
Jason
are putting
Miller,
it there, knowing that it's going to antagonize the United States citizens that actually know where it comes from.
Yep.
So, and his latest is the stab in the back. He's had the poisoning the blood of our people.
Yep.
He's had
the vermin.
Calling people vermin, and telling people the immigrants coming in are full of disease.
Yeah,
they're full, disease-ridden rodents and animals, and we're going to get rid of these vermin. The examples are endless, and if you take just one of these examples on itself, then maybe it's nothing. But when you put all of it together, there's a reason behind it. There's an objective. There's you know where they're pulling it from at this point, because when you talk about Donald Trump talking about the stab in the back, obviously we know that comes from the World War I myth that the Jews were behind everything, and somehow
they're on both sides of the war.
Sabotaged the German army. And it wasn't the German military that lost on the battlefield. It was people behind the scenes in the homeland that really were the cause of the loss of World War I.
Right,
and it's inherently anti-Semitic. And he continues to say these things. Like I said, globalist is just shorthand for Jews, and it's something that should be obvious to everybody. It should be blown up by the mainstream media. It should be shouted from the rooftops, and it's just not.
Well, and I have a question around that when we come back. Let's take a break, and then because I know that's the World War II aspect is a particular area of interest and expertise for Boston Brian. But also Johnny Million, I have a question for you as well. We come back after this. It's the House Parks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Yay!
It's very shiny on QT. What's that on the top there?
There used to be a head in that.
Whoa! Wow! Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Primarily the I'm vacillate on this. I'll wait until to ask you the question when we come back, because I don't want to and by the way, this is one of my uncle's patches.
I was just watching one of my favorite documentaries and TV series. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
1 minute.
The World at War is a 1970s British TV series. It's got about, I want to say 30-something episodes that goes from the beginning of the war, obviously, to the end of the war, and it covers everything in between, and it's unbelievable. Wow. It has footage in it that you don't see anywhere else. I mean, you can also do World War II in color and World War II from space. A lot of these are.
Oh, yes.
Wow. Yep. I love it. I mean, just the history behind it and the things that these kids went through. Thank you so much. It's fascinating. It's probably crazy to say, but I do feel like at some point I was in there. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I'm either born in the wrong generation or I was there in spirit somehow, and I have a different
reincarnated
feeling
from it
for it somehow. Yeah. It's I don't know. It's remarkable.
Nope, I understand it.
And the parallels from then and today that can be drawn
Stand
is just
by.
crazy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like I never thought I would get into politics. I just love military.
Welcome back to the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So we've been talking a bit about the rhetoric from Donald Trump lately in his, his sort of absurd. I don't know these flail fests in high school.
They're not rallies. They're not rallies.
They definitely aren't.
They're intimate. They're intimate get-togethers.
Yeah, outside it's packed, but inside, like
He doesn't like to admit it's a rally.
No, because
the size,
the
it's too
turnout's so
small
bad.
for him. Right.
Oh.
He doesn't like to admit.
Like I said before, RSBN started it. RSBN broadcasters started saying, Trump started doing more of these intimate settings, so you can be closer, and it's because he can't do the big rallies that he used to. So Trump saw that on a broadcast. I can almost guarantee it.
Yep.
And then he started saying that, okay, this isn't a rally. This is more of an intimate. Intimate get together.
Yeah, it's not my rallies have gotten smaller. My dinner parties have gotten bigger. Like that. It's this. So it's exactly like I've said. It's the exact joke from Spinal Tap. I don't think the audiences are getting smaller. I just think their appeal is getting more selective. That's what that joke is. I mean, it's dead on what's happening to him. And the whole, they were still booing him when we came on.
They're still booing him. We have to apologize for his set.
Tries to brag about 70, 80, 90,000 people at a rally still is mind-boggling.
Well, the other thing,
it's like him pointing to the TV cameras that aren't there.
Oh,
look at all the cameras.
Oh,
it's
those
all
red
people.
lights.
It's Real America's Voice and OAN and
RSBN
and Newsmax.
at his own campaign. Most of the cameras are his own campaign. They send the feeds to RSBN so they can have the footage.
Exactly. That's why RSBN had to put in, when they do a break, they actually had to start putting in their clip. RSBN is known for panning the camera, panning the crowd. They literally have to put that in one of their
People
breaks.
throw stuff at them and threaten their lives, and you're like, we're from right side broadcasting. We even have
because people were probably like, you better show how many people are at the crowd.
Right, yeah.
Look at the red light goes out as soon as I talk about this.
Don't blame us. We have a ridiculous name that it's like a hammer. Like we can't even pretend, or we'll get killed. So the question I have is, does Donald Trump know the deeper meaning of what he's saying, or is Stephen Miller, in an attempt to lift Trump up with his base and drive out, the fervent crowds, get the real, the rabid crowds out for him to make it look like they're not fading. They're just getting, he's the passion.
I'm going 80-20. I'm going 80-20.
Okay.
80% Stephen Miller, 20% Donald Trump, because there was that report back in the day that Donald Trump did have that tableside book of Hitler's speeches.
That's right. Most people thought it was Mein Kampf, but it was actually a book of Hitler's speeches.
So I know he does have knowledge of the rhetoric and the vocabulary that's coming out. Whether or not it's his choice to put it in there, I don't think so. I think he knows that Stephen Miller knows how to get a base riled up, knows how to put wording in there that not only is going to rile his base up, but it's going to get the outside group talking about it, even if it's negatively talking about it. Like when Midas Touch does a post, or now the New York Times picks up on it. Like they say, no press is bad press. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he just needs people.
It's also the outrage. Yeah, it's also the outrage machine. Like if people are outraged, that's news in and of itself. Because you can argue that social media in many ways is a pond that no matter how big the rock you throw into it is, it doesn't create a ripple unless people are outraged. The outrage, the like ratio on something, the organic, actual Trump followers supporting something he says, is probably a 3-ring ripple on this. And then it just goes. It's like a perfect Olympic diver. No splash. Right? Nothing. The only way it ripples out and continues to create waves is if people are horrified. The problem is, does he run aground? Do you get into a situation where it's harder to get people horrified because he's said this kind of stuff before? it's always been crap. He's never followed through. He's got nutty followers, but he himself isn't capable of doing it. So people just kind of roll their eyes. So he's got to be even worse.
I think they know that fascism and authoritarianism works best in chaos. When chaos is spreading, or when people think chaos is spreading, when people think they're in mortal danger, when people think their country is in mortal danger, when they think that, you know, if a Democrat president is elected next time, they will have no country, like Donald Trump has been saying for years now. You know, like fascism can only thrive in chaos. In World War II, when Germany was doing well, Hitler was on the outskirts. Nobody cared about him. They thought he was a weirdo. But when, you know, the inflation started to rise, and you know, everybody lost their job, when they start looking to the outskirts, anybody that's going to offer them bread, work, and peace, and that's how it happens. So they have to convince you that somehow we are in some sort of you know, dire straits, chaotic situation where the economy is crap and the tankers, you know, we're buying oil from Venezuela, and you know, Joe Biden's getting money from China, and they have to paint this ridiculously chaotic picture in order for these people. It's basically stochastic terrorism. You know what I mean? If you believe your country is in that much danger, then what are you going to do? What would you do to save it?
And the only thing you can think of is find the most authoritarian monster in the world. You need to buy a pit bull. The neighborhood is bad. Is essentially
that's what he's banking on.
But the issue I have, though, is, and this is probably what they didn't realize when the dog caught the car, when Donald Trump actually became president, there was a real issue with the fact that, like, well, fix it then, dummy. Go ahead. And that's he's failed to do it.
It's amazing how he still gets away with talking about these things that he did not change, he did not fix, he did not attempt to fix while he was president of the United States of America. Lock up Hillary.
About him
did
like
he do anything with Hillary Clinton? No. He lied to his he lied to his base the whole time about that one. Now he even comes out and says, "Look, there was no way for Mexico to pay for the wall."
The 28,000.
Why the hell were you saying it for months? Well, you know what I mean? For months.
And he's now saying that the 28,000 soldiers they gave us weren't cheap, and therefore that was them paying for the wall. And secondarily, the only reason they put those soldiers there is to make sure that American construction workers who are on the Mexico side of the border building this stupid wall didn't get killed by cartel people and start an international incident that would give Donald Trump, the lunatic, impetus to invade Mexico, which he would have done.
You know what's really smart? What's really smart is when you know, build a road in some of the most uninhabitable areas of the border where people probably
never would have traversed.
Ever in their lives thought about even going there. And now all of a sudden there's a nice paved road going right to that location, right to a fence that you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, spend about, you know, $15 to $25, and that wall is no longer an issue for you.
Well, just drive the wall. Oh, look, okay. So what you're talking about is the access road that they had to build the wall on the Mexican side of the border, which makes it flatten the land out, and now you can drive a vehicle all the way to, wait for it, the end of the wall. You either hit private land or you hit a Native American reservation. Right. And so people can just walk around it. They are
and that's another thing. Talking about the part of the walls that they were selling. You know what I mean? Those are the parts that either private citizens said, hell no, you're not going to put it on my land, or it was Indian reservations that said, hell no, you're not putting it on our land. It's not like we took wall down to, hi, Auntie. How are you, dear?
Oh, that's my mom walking in, giving me the keys to the car.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Mom. I took a guess and I guessed wrong.
Yeah, that's right. But no, she is a dear. She really is. So, anyways, the idea that was actually going to be a solution to it. And by the way, using all the funding that we would have used for infrared cameras, radar, drones, vehicles for the Customs and Border Patrol, and instead of spending it on that, he spent it literally building a road for the cartels to use to truck people to the end of the wall and go, get out here and walk around. And then all during Title 42. If they catch you, they're going to kick you out, and they're not going to penalize you. They're not even going to fingerprint you because it's Title 42.
Right. At least now there's a punishment.
Yep, and then you come back in. And the next time you come back in, you can carry drugs or we can sexually exploit you.
And each one is counted as an encounter.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it drives up the number of the
That's
encounters because one person could have 14, 15 encounters.
And 3 million people in the math of Donald Trump and Title 42 has become 15 million people. I really believe there's 15 million people.
It's got to be 20 soon because the population of New York State is above what he actually says.
Right,
it is.
yeah. Boston Brian.
You can't get anything right.
Nothing.
You can't get anything right.
Nothing. Boston Brian, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it. Check him out, Den Boston Brian, on all your social medias. And, of course, check out his videos with the Midas Touch Network as well. We'll be back right after this.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too.
Appreciate
Happy
it.
birthday, Boston Brian. Happy birthday. To you. All right, let's see.
Thank you to the chat too. I've been looking at the chat here.
Yeah.
I found an actual way to see the chat while I'm on with Hal, and I do appreciate
Crazy.
everybody that said happy birthday, Mr. Spock, everybody.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. You guys are the best.
It's awesome. And you and I will have to have a round kind of what's going on in the Israeli-Gaza thing, because that's going to pop off, by the way, probably end of next week. It's probably going to extend past the 4 days. I would say they're going to eke out 10 hostages a day till they run out of anybody until they get down to military-age men.
Right.
Who they've
Phil,
already killed.
Happy Thanksgiving, buddy.
Who they have already. Hey, there
right
he is.
Back at you.
Yeah. And we shall see, what that
I
is.
appreciate you, Hal.
But we'll talk about that at some point. We'll talk about that, if you will. That'd be great.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the show. Johnny, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Phil, as always, is the best. Hal,
All right.
thank
All
you.
right.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
See you later. Cheers. Let me grab this real quick, and I will pop this in, and I think it should. We'll swap this guy in real. There he is. I just got to move him over because he always lists to port.
Well, I've got my holiday gnome that I have to show, and then I have my candle.
I've know.
Got my Holodomor candle. So
there you go.
Gotta have those over my shoulder.
Indeed. Hold on. There we go. And let me grab one thing. I'll be right back. Hold on.
Okay.
Sure.
Hold on.
What if he comes back with like an animal?
This is Cam's jacket.
Well, I did not have a full night's sleep last night, so I'm a little punch drunk. So.
All right.
All right.
What do we got? What do you got? What's in the box?
What's in the box? What's in the box? I was just showing off my it's my Uncle Dave who passed.
Oh,
It's right before he went into service. He looked like he could be in Nerd Halen with us, but he
Oh yeah.
he looks like American Graffiti, the character in American Graffiti.
That's
Yeah.
right, very much so. This is one of his pewter mugs from their FBI retirement gatherings that they did. He's got a wall of them.
Okay. Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Mm-hmm. So hold on one second. I'm gonna bring up because I don't have my spare monitor on this one, so I've got to do everything adjunct on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Because and Boston Brian wanted to bring it up, but they the Ukrainians have just been like first they hit the Russians hit a Kiev maternity ward. You'd think after all the wailing and gnashing of teeth of the pro Hamas crowd, the faux-aggressive lefties who are like all up in arms about the what about the children? Apparently, when they're Ukrainian children, who gives a damn? But
yeah. Well, and it's not like that's the first hospital that's been hit. We get. I mean, there's a hospital hit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to.
I mean, this is them.
It's roughly about a week. It's about once a week we get a hospital that gets hit.
Yeah. This is
so,
also a night. Luckily, they hit it at nighttime. This is a kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
In Ukraine.
No, last night was rough, man.
Yeah.
Last night was intense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
I mean, every few minutes, something would go boom.
And the
mostly, thankfully, it was our anti-aircraft.
Yeah, that's
the Holodomor.
Yeah, we'll talk about that right out of the gate, because that like the reminiscence of it is
big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Big deal. Very big deal. And the fact that they keep on the day of the anniversary or the day we mark the Holodomor, they attack us with this massive attack. Mm-hmm. So it's not lost on people.
No,
but you're absolutely right. The it's also not lost on Ukrainians that this whole kind of like, how dare they bomb hospitals in Gaza, when it's like, well, the Russians are bombing our hospitals like
all the time. Yeah.
And where are our protests?
Yeah.
Where are the outcrying for our children? Not to mention the children that are being purposely orphaned and then captured and ethnically cleansed.
Right. Yeah.
You don't see the Israelis doing that to Palestinian children, do you?
Nope.
And yet,
right. I watched over the last couple of days, whatever, there was this interview series that was that Chicago saying
we're back in 20.
Okay, thank you. This is a guy doing interviews. This is from years ago with Arabs who live in Israel proper, saying, have you thought about, would you rather live in the West Bank or Gaza, whatever? And they're like, no. They're like, I get to vote here. I wouldn't get to vote there. I'm not the right kind of Muslim. Yeah. Like all of them, to the person.
You're listening to the House Sparks radio program, Megaworldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at housesparks.com.
Well, I don't care for you if the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn, puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back to the show, by the way. It's Hal Sparks and Johnny Million, and our dear friend Philip Bittner joins us now live from Kiev with his over his shoulder. If you're watching the live stream, you can see his gnome that's just adorable. His Christmas gnome, and his picture of Olga of Kiev. We've told the story of that particular BA lady several times on the show, and if you don't know the story of Olga from Kiev, Manoshevitz.
Oh, check it out.
I don't know why that hasn't been a movie yet, and it will be. I mean, maybe it has been over there, but why the U.S. hasn't made it?
It has been here. Yeah. It has been here several times. She is a fantastic story, and you're right. She deserves a Hollywood big production movie.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I've got my candle, my single candle, burning bright because sadly, tragically, this is the anniversary of the Holodomor famine. Mm-hmm. Which resulted a man-made famine by Stalin, by the Russians, to basically depopulate Ukraine by forced famine and by taking all their food and sending. I mean, it's the analogies to the Irish potato famine, for example, come to mind. But some estimates put the death toll at around 7 million Ukrainians dead, and the world is starting to recognize it as the tragedy it was. So every fourth Saturday in November, it's a Ukrainian tradition to light a candle and remember the victims of that. And then you wonder why Ukrainians aren't keen to be
under Russian
by Moscow.
Yeah, because it's worked out so well before, and especially when they decide to do their when they're at their most imperialistic, they make decisions like that that lead to the deaths of millions of people as a necessary expense for the Mutterland or whatever, the motherland.
The Rodina.
And if I'm not,
that's what they call it.
I'm fairly certain, like J.K. Rowling's at one point talking about like where Voldemort actually, his name is a reference to the Holodomor, the famine.
Oh wow!
I had heard that. Yeah, I'd heard that before.
Yeah. So as a reminder of that as well. I don't know if she has family or is any background in that, but that's where it came from, and it's it's a good reminder, and it is a terrible character and a terrible idea. So it brings forth the fear that you would want a character like that to bring forward, I suppose. Now, over the last little bit, you guys in Kiev have been hit really hard on the anniversary
Last night-
of the Holodomor
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, which a lot of people are saying is no coincidence. Yeah, last night, you'll have to excuse me if I'm a little dazed and confused, because I mean we didn't get any sleep last night. We were constantly under attack. 75 drones or missiles. There was one cruise missile apparently were shot at us. And that's one every 15, 20 minutes over a 6-hour period.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And it's not the ones, even though our air defenses are really good in Kiev, but even then, they're shooting and it's loud and scary.
Right.
They're shooting stuff out of the sky. The stuff falls from the sky, so we still get damage from that all around the city. It's Russian roulette in many different ways, if you'll forgive the reference.
Right.
Just arbitrary chucking munitions at the Capitol. And so it kept people awake all night last night. The air raid sirens were constant. The anti-aircraft fire was constant. I heard the one that got through, that was distinguishable by the fact that it was, a massive explosion. But we're here. We're still here. The lights are not on. I'm sorry, the lights are not off. We still have power. I have lights. The streets are still lined with street lights. People are still commemorating the Holodomor. It doesn't mean that they're not traumatized, but what we went through last night.
Yeah.
And in my particular case, sleep deprived. And I'm not sure. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But we're not giving. I mean,
yeah, it's not.
I don't understand it. I don't understand. We're not giving up. We're not going anywhere. And
and
all it does is steal our resolve against them.
Right. I think that was a total of like 75 Shahed drones were fired. 71 were shot down, and even though the Russians apparently have been coating them in carbon to try and get them through the air defenses, that doesn't seem to be working. I guess.
Nope.
That test in particular, which is a good thing. The area expanded across the Dnieper even further. Avdiivka has remained a meat grinder. The losses of Ukrainian soldiers versus Russian soldiers is like 1 compared to 80 to 100, something like that. It is.
I just checked right before I came on with you.
Yeah.
It looks like today it's about 1,200 Russian soldiers were killed today alone. One single day.
Wow.
And most of that probably is Avdiivka, although some of it might be Avdiivka. So the conflict, the fighting over Avdiivka is it's kind of near Kharkiv. It's in the northeast of the country, and it's an area where there's a number of towns that are connected in a hub of transportation. It's like a spider web up there with its arterial kind of transportation routes,
right?
Because it was built to be industrial. And so if you needed to, like, if you wanted to get, if you wanted to smelt something in one factory and then you had to move it to another for shaping or foundering or whatever it is, you could move around the area. And it's built like that. It's built to be like that. But the problem that I still can't understand, and I'm looking to talk to a military expert about this, and I've already got some irons in the fire with that, but why they're so fixated on places like Avdiivka and Bakhmut, none of which have any one singular strategic or tactical advantage, but they don't seem to be fighting as hard for this salient that is being built by the Ukrainians on the other side of the river. The Ukrainians have crossed the Dnieper River.
Right.
They're on what's called the left bank, because in military terminology, you determine what is a left bank and a right bank because rivers tend to wind and snake. So east, west, north, south doesn't work. You do it by left and right so that you can get your battle plans in order.
Right.
And you do it by where the water is flowing. So the water flows down into the Black Sea. That means everything basically, and since I'm a civilian, I'm going to switch back to west and east.
Yeah.
That is on the eastern side of the Dnieper River, which means they've crossed one of the major physical barriers in this country for fighting a war. And it's hugely strategically important. And if they can push out a little bit further, and they do continue to push out, there's a whole wooded area where they can take refuge in. There are forests down there that they can hide in. It's not nearly as industrialized up near Bakhmut and Avdiivka.
Yeah.
So if the Ukrainians can make a breakthrough, and there's a lot of talk, and I've been talking to a lot of people, military experts, about this portion of things, and I have yet to get an answer for the Avdiivka question I have. But what some people have pointed out to me is, you remember about a third of the way into this war so far, about 3-6 months, something like that, the British decided that they were going to train tens of thousands, or like several thousand Ukrainian Marines on amphibious landings. And everybody went, oh, that's Crimea. That's Crimea. That's going to be Crimea. Maybe it's not Crimea.
Yeah, maybe it's Dnieper, right?
Maybe it's crossing the river.
Eventually,
cross the river,
it'll be Crimea. Yeah.
Eventually, it might be Crimea. I mean, my sincere hope is, and I don't think this is a false hope, is that once the land bridge is severed, and once the Russians cannot deny that they are losing territory that has been part of their domain, part of their empire, since George Washington and Catherine the Great were contemporaries on this planet,
right?
So late 18th century. That once it becomes apparent to the Russian people that Putin has lost not only Odessa, the city Catherine built, but also Crimea, their access to a warm water port, which was Peter the Great, which is even pushing Russian history back even further. His dream, his stated dream, was that Russia would become a naval power. It is under Putin's leadership.
Yeah.
Not only are you going to lose Odessa, but that dream dies with the loss of Crimea. No Russian, I contend strongly, no Russian leader survives that.
Right.
Putin is in a very precarious place.
Yeah. We got to take a break. When we come back, I heard something related to what Russia is going to do in terms of Crimea that is singularly one of the stupidest things I have ever heard floated around this, considering what we have heard over the last couple of years from the convicted pedophile Scott Ritters of the world and his ilk. It is amazing to me that people go, but they found a way. The Russians are going to solve this problem they're in through this magical twist of fate. And what great skill they are showing by floating this idea. And I burst out laughing. We'll be back right after this. I'll tell you what. After we come back. No, it wasn't that, Johnny Million. That was,
okay.
I hope that was you. Anyways, we'll be back right after this. I almost don't want to tell you, but I don't want to tee it up if you haven't heard this. But apparently, the idea is that the Russians are going to tunnel to Crimea.
Oh yeah, I have heard that.
Wow.
That they're going to build like the train tunnel that goes under the channel between France and England. That they're going to make one of those. They're going to do that. They're going to do that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With Chinese engineers.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my.
No, I know.
God.
It's just.
It's absurd.
It's crazy. And again, I mean, I've talked about that strait, the Strait of Azov there. It's all silt. It'll
collapse on you.
It's not particularly deep, if I remember correctly, and it's just all silt.
Yeah.
So where are you going to put your tunnel?
Yeah.
Where are you going to engineer your tunnel? It's desperation.
Yeah.
They're losing.
Yeah.
So bad. Bad.
You can tell, by the way, I can tell.
We're back in 20.
Thank you. We'll talk about the potential for this tunnel idea, but also how the Russians are losing. I have a very distinct metric that I've discovered, that when things are going bad for Russia, particularly bad around something, there's a way to tell. Besides,
they're still waiting for their pizzas.
Yeah, that's right.
Welcome
Thank you,
back
Ozzy.
to the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I swear, you leave it to Johnny Million to, in the break, throw in a pop culture reference that deals with the topic. For those of you who don't know, one of my favorite things that I watched with my dear friend Johnny Million back in the day was the Moscow Music Peace Festival. So many times. The Moscow Music Peace Festival, which filled us all with so much hope. So much hope, by the way, that the Scorpions wrote a song about it. Follow the Moskva down to Gorky Park, right? Which now, of course, you follow the Moskva to the bottom of the Black Sea, but that's not the point. The point is that Cinderella killed, and they were amazing, and Zakk Wylde was the best guitar player Ozzy's
so
had.
So was Bon Jovi, actually.
Yeah, they were great. That said, there was this Ozzy interview that's in that where he's talking about how we complain in the West because we're worried about, our pizza. We're getting mad because our pizza hasn't gotten here in 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes. We still got over there. They're still waiting for their pizzas. Was his reference to the Russian people. The poor Russians are still waiting for their
synopsis.
pizzas.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the mortal words of
centuries of oppression.
Yes,
but I didn't get my pepperoni pizza.
That's right. In the immortal words of the Dread Private Roberts, get used to disappointment. That said, we were talking about this during the thing that the Russians have there's always this fallback plan that the Russians are now it's coming. Oh, they're gonna gather up a bunch of criminals and send them to the front line. And then it's gonna be a bunch of psychos at the front line, and then the Ukrainians don't have a chance. Oh no, they're gonna gather up every fighting age man in the country. Never mind that of course means that oil rigs and factories and stuff go without workers. Most of them, the safety guys, apparently, they all get to it. Let's take the guy in charge of the guy with the clipboard and make sure that nothing blows up. Give him a gun and send him to the front line. That's brilliant. But
I'd rather have my air traffic controllers.
Yes, send all the guys in their FAA. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so then this is amazing to me. So you hear this thing about how we're going to lose. They're going to lose Crimea because all the Ukrainians have to do when they take Crimea is blow up the bridge, and that's that. Meanwhile, so the big plan out of Russia, and this was from. It was floated all over the place on the Telegram channels, and it came from, I guess, one of the guys who was on the 60 Minute show. But they've really been apparently thinking about this. The Crimea is that they're gonna, or in the Kremlin, is that they're gonna dig a tunnel between Russia and Crimea to have basically a Kerch bridge under the water, and they're gonna do that now with the help of China, in the middle of a war zone. Mm-hmm. They're gonna build a train tunnel like the one
right like the one that links London with Calais.
In
France.
Right.
The problem with that is that the English Channel is not the Azov Strait.
Right.
The Azov Strait is a particularly narrow little strait. And not too deep, apparently, between the Crimean Peninsula and mainland, what would be considered mainland and Russia. And so they built this bridge. The Ukrainians have shot the bridge a few times. I have had a U.S. Military attaché to Kiev tell me directly that we had sent down SEALs after the thing was built, after that bridge was built. And our SEAL teams came back. Having, they have this skill set because you have to blow stuff up if you're a SEAL.
Yeah.
So you have to have a certain amount of understanding of engineering.
Yeah.
And they came back and the SEAL team said that thing's sinking into the silt. It's all silt.
Yeah.
You can't dig through it like they did in the English Channel.
They told me
it's all this fine.
Yeah. They told me I was mad to build a castle on a swamp, but I built it anyways.
There you go.
And it sank into the swamp.
Yeah.
So I built another one, and it sank into the swamp.
Yeah, well.
And I built a third one. It fell over, burnt down, and sank into the swamp. But the fourth one stayed up. That's that.
Well, it's a good joke. It's a good joke, except for the fact if you know the story of how St. Petersburg was built.
That's right.
Peter did exactly that.
That's right.
He actually did build the city once, and it sank into the swamp, and he let his workers die.
In all fairness, so did Seattle. The workers didn't die, but it slid down the hill, and Seattle is built. The foundation of Seattle is built on the foundation of the foundation of the town underneath it. Go if anybody.
Well, Petersburg was similar.
Yeah, go to Seattle and go on the underground tour, and you see windows that face dirt. It's pretty fascinating. But here's the thing. Let's talk about the endeavor that would require. You're talking about, for the length of this, by me doing the math in my head, 4 Hoover dams worth of effort and materials linked together, minimum, for the length of this thing. Like the entire structure of the Hoover Dam, take the depth, later out, height to width, whatever you want. But the amount of materials in 4 Hoover dams, and they're going to engage in that kind of a construction project now. While, by the way, while
there's a war going on,
and while their
economy is
crashing,
absolutely falling apart. Yeah, all their workers are being mobilized.
Yeah,
has crashed. I would argue. Yes, I'd agree with you there. They're not. It's madness. It's madness, and also it's not engineering. I mean, I am sure.
Yeah.
That if you asked any engineer in the world, they would say, "No way.
Yeah.
No way. Can't be done. Can't be done." It's a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream. It's,
no pun
it's
intended.
Something to keep. Yeah.
It's
something to keep hope for their side, or to provide an argument for those sympathetic to the Russians or who are anti-Ukrainian.
Right.
Keep holding on to hope. But this is why, again, I say that having Ukrainian boots on, dipping into the waters of the Sea of Azov is going to be a really rude awakening for a lot of people.
Yep.
And it will 100% threaten Vladimir Putin's ship. And in the system that he has created, if he disappears, there's a massive vacuum. And then we have to see what happens with the Russian Federation. Russian Federation is made up of several different republics. Do they stick together? Do they start to splinter off?
Right.
What happened? It's just
so they're
the likes of Scott Ritter and all the people who are still convinced that Ukraine is a lost cause have no idea what's about to happen.
That brings me to how I can tell when Ukraine has made a great advance or has done something really terrific. And the way you know that is a specific chorus of individuals comes out and says, it's over. Ukraine has been smashed. There is no hope. The Russians are going to win. When they start talking in these large, bloviated, fantastical ways about how, in ways that are measurably untrue in terms of Kiev has fallen, that kind of stuff. There is no functioning government. The United States isn't backing them anymore, blah, 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 blah. When you hear that kind of language, which is materially, obviously, absurdly untrue, that when those folks start saying that kind of stuff, you can tell it's not for us as an audience. It might be for those among us that have been anti-Ukraine from the beginning or have been still nursemaiding their smarting ego from being called out as fools or belligerent supporters of this idea that there were Nazis in Ukraine, so the people in Bucha had it coming, which is grotesque. And by the way, those people have found a new lollipop in that the people at the music festival had it coming because of this perception that Gaza is an open-air prison. That's enough to excuse what happened to the women there. Those same people were saying the same thing about Bucha and the like. They're the same folks. And when those folks start going on their podcasts, their interview shows, or start showing up and saying it's done, Ukraine is over, it's lost, Russia is, has finally nail in the coffin for Ukraine. And they've done this many times. Every single time they've done it, it is because the Ukrainians have made a massive advance that has changed the tide moving forward. Either by destroying the Sevastopol's ability to be used as a naval space, the reclamation of Snake Island, the driving them back entirely to the original lines, and this point crossing the Dnieper and destroying,
pushing them out of Kharkiv.
Yeah, pushing them out of Kharkiv, exactly, and holding and like even like the Bakhmut part where they backed in and reclaim it and back in and reclaim it, and at the cost of tens of thousands of Russian lives. So one of the charts that I've been looking at, which I find fascinating, is that in the beginning of the war, the artillery losses in the Russian army were moderate until America and NATO started supplying Ukraine with the ability, you know, with long-range artillery and long-range missile systems to fight back against some of this stuff, because they just, quite frankly, couldn't get close enough to destroy some of this stuff. And then it started to peak right around, by the chart I'm looking at, May 2023, it jumped from like maybe 200 units that they were able to get to thousands of units that they were hitting at a time, you know, over the next per month. Now it started to taper off again. But it is not tapered off because the Ukrainians suddenly can't hit their targets, or the Ukrainians suddenly can't, you know, are losing ground. It's tapering off because they don't exist. Because while shells are not a problem, because apparently North Korea is backfilling Russia's needs, unfortunately for the Russians, the actual systems that fire the things are being destroyed, have been destroyed at such a clip that they are not being replaced. Even at the slow pace of EU and American support putting stuff into Ukrainian hands, they're not able to hit it because of the Patriot system and other reasons. The Russians aren't able to blow up as many on the other side, and therefore they're still intact. But the Ukrainians are running out of things to destroy in the Russian military. That in and of itself is amazing to me.
Yeah. Well, and they focused on artillery because they know that's Russian doctrine is artillery is the backbone of any military campaign.
Yeah.
So they've been really emphasizing artillery, and it looks like they've been quite effective. And you know, look, it just they're not doing well. The Russians. I mean, they're doing a couple of things well here, there, and the other place, but they're losing this war.
Yes.
I mean, they're losing this war.
So
and the whole thing about the spring offensive.
Yeah.
We might see it in December, January.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Is you don't go when they think you're going to go. You go when they least expect it. And we're going to talk on we got to take a break. When the other side, I want to read you this quote from Ivan Stupak, who's a former Ukrainian advisor, whatever, who's now one of the advisors to the parliamentary guys. Like he's got a shifted security job within there, or whatever. But he's one of the guys that keeps track of all these things for them and is supposed to report back, like, okay, what's the problem? How do we handle it? And his take on it is dead on. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million. Also, Jay Churchill, thanks for becoming a Patreon on Thanksgiving. That was really lovely. Appreciate that so much. Patreon.com/HalSparks. And, of course, Super Chats and all that stuff are welcome. I haven't talked about that in a bit because we're busy doing a show. But we'll be back right after this. Yeah. So, holy smokes. So, this, like, he's been laying out, like, what the Russians are now using as far as artillery. It's hilarious. I'll wait to read it to you. Because it's, we saw the Sanford and Son trucks, you know, a little bit ago on the front line. Yeah. Every time I see the video of that truck, like those trucks coming in, like all I can think of is if they didn't run on like diesel and the blood of the innocent, I'd want one because they're classic vehicles. But man, yeah. So like Ukraine just got the Archer system from Sweden, you know, and the Norwegian system, and then of course got our systems, the MLRSs. And the piss off
90 seconds from deployment to firing to getting out of there.
Yeah. And the Russians are like using tractors to pull some of these things to get them out of the way, and they're like,
well, and they just announced today he announced that and it must have been a result of this week's meetings that they're going to get a lot more air defense for Odessa.
Yeah.
Which is going to be fantastic.
Coming back in 15.
Yeah, because they need it. Yeah, Odessa's one.
Really
Thank
needed
you,
in Odessa.
Chicago.
Yeah, they needed in Odessa badly, and Kherson, but I would argue Odessa more than Kherson.
You're locked into the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
You know, in honor of this being Thanksgiving, I would like to say for the record that I could not be more thankful to have our dear friend Philip Bittner being able to join us on the regular, and that he's safe and sound currently. Also, my dear friend Johnny Million being a part of this show on the regular. I love you, brother, and I thank you so much. And everybody in Chicago who, you know, behind the scenes is always having to like throw switches like the Wizard of Oz to help us make sure this show actually happens every week. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. Whoever gets thrown into the radio meat grinder every week trying to help out, and I'm not the only show that happens remote on the station, so I know they deal with it on the regular. So I'm very grateful that they exist, and to everybody in our chat room, even the trolls, who I swear to God only come over to my chat room just to take a break from being worse elsewhere, because they're like, okay, but these people aren't so bad. They're kind of nice, I guess. So what I was saying before the break, before I got all sappy, was this guy Ivan Stupak, who's a former officer of the Security Services Ukraine. He's an advisor to the Ukrainian Parliament's National Security, Defense, and Intelligence Committee now. He was interviewed by Newsweek. And this was, he was talking about the state of artillery weapons of the Russians right now. Because again, he's one of these guys who all day long, they look at the aerial photographs and the satellite imagery that the U.S. and other, and by the way, and that Ukraine buys commercially from commercial satellites of the battle zone, right? And he looks at what they're shooting at. Not just where the bullets go and or where the artillery shells go or the missiles go, but what they're actually hitting in the process. And what he's seeing from the air increasingly is that he goes, it's a really big problem for the Russians. It's not just a cliche. It's not Ukrainian propaganda. For the last 5 months or so, Russia has been very actively using old style artillery, not late Soviet era, but mid-50s and 60s, D-30 and D-20 type of towed artillery with a maximum range of 9 to 11 miles. It's a very short distance. It's nothing compared with the Archer from Sweden. And he's referring to them that the Archers, which is a artillery system that can shoot 30 miles. Russian artillery stockpiles are totally depleted. They are using this artillery because they have no other options. This guy has no reason to blow smoke. That's not his gig. His whole thing is, as a matter of fact, you can argue that it's better for him if they don't. He could come out and go, man, they've got some really bad stuff, and so NATO and America and EU, they gotta back us up. Like this guy is just speaking very frankly about what's there. And there's this. They had an independence. Oh, here you go. This is that the Ukrainians caught one of the Russian tanks, and I'm showing it on stream right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is it's got no tread on it because I don't know that it ever did. But I swear it looks like a houseboat with an artillery gun, for those listening on the radio. It looks like a rusty houseboat. It's like they cut off a piece of a camper van and put it on top of this tank. No kidding. It's a Russian MSTAS self-propelled artillery system. And they captured it recently, and they used it in a parade to show that it was there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians used it in it. He goes, there's lots of problems with deploying artillery and munitions from European countries. So we were promised about 1 million shells. This is Stupak in Kiev. He goes, but now we've only got about 300,000. That's their depletion. They need 1 million. They wanted 1 million shells. They're down to 300,000. They have 300,000 shells, and they are targeting using our satellites and the commercial satellites and their own, like arrangement with EU.
And some cluster munitions.
That's right. Which are helping immensely.
Things.
Right. And the Russians don't have 300,000 targets left in this area, by my measure. They just don't. If you even look at the troop positions, they're around Avdiivka and other places, it is starting to fan out. The winter.
Oh, you mean there aren't 350,000 Russian targets?
Yeah. Sorry, that's the Ukrainian. Yeah, the Ukrainians.
For the Ukrainians.
The Ukrainians don't have targets to hit of the Russians, because there aren't that many vehicles left around to hit or artillery systems available to hit. They're gonna, obviously, they need backup, and the advance is going to continue until the Russians tap out, no matter what, because they don't care about their own people. So they're just going to send. No. Waves of murderers into the country, hoping that something breaks through or that it breaks the back of NATO, the EU, or America in the process, which is not.
They're hoping they're hoping
we get out.
They're betting everything. They're betting everything on us losing our resolve.
Yeah.
That's the only way they survive this conflict with any even remote, exhibition of success.
Yeah.
Is if we lose our nerve. That's it. I mean, what is happening in the South, to me, is one of the most significant things that have happened in the war so far. And if they can push out a little bit further, they can push out a little bit further so that they have some maneuvering room. They could bring across Abrams tanks, which we're going to see on the battlefield in winter. I'm sure of it. I'm quite frankly, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if they've already been deployed, and we just haven't seen any footage of it yet. They're getting the F-16s. They're supposed to be getting it in December. And they've openly said that, there's going to have to be a pause when the seasons change and there's all the mud. But then when things freeze over again,
it's on.
The Ukrainians have openly said it's back on.
Yeah.
And we're not stopping. And I just can't emphasize it enough. The second they make sure that every single Russian has to recognize we might lose Crimea. That is a real, very much a possibility. It's going to be a shock to the system.
Right.
It's going to be a massive shock to the system.
By the way, technically speaking, the Ukrainians, since they crossed the Dnieper, are now 50 miles from Crimea.
Yes.
Just to give people an idea of how close they are. Now, think about how far it would take you to drive 50 miles anywhere around you, minus traffic, anywhere, especially if it was open field and you were just blazing across it. That's the fear that the Russians are in that, are experiencing right now about that area, because they didn't back it up because they thought Crimea is the main fallback and the ships will protect it, but Sevastopol is gone because the Ukrainians have effectively driven the Russians out of the Black Sea.
That's a good point. One of the things I did notice about last night is all the munitions that were shot at us came from either north, which is kind of Belarus /
Russian territory,
wedge of Russia, or from the east. We did not get any drones or any cruise missiles coming at us from the south, which is generally what happens when you have surface ships have been not been a problem for quite some time, but they still have submarines that can get to a certain depth and then fire, and we didn't even have that last night.
Right.
So we're not getting shot at from the sea anymore. We're getting shot at from, either Belarus or Russia.
Well, the other thing too is, are you going to, in a situation like this, are you going to bring if you've already lost the biggest portion of your battleships in that area, or your, any time your military ships in that area, and some of your transports, are you going to bring your subs to surface? Especially
You're right. You're right, and this is the same sort of thing that they saw on the Kherson front. One thing that has been happening on the Kherson front is that they've been deploying more of their air force, which they've been very reluctant to do because the Ukrainians have pretty good air defense systems that can shoot down some very expensive fighter bomber jets, and so the Russians have not been using their air force as they should, and I think even they know it, but they can't. It's too dangerous. But there have been at least 3 sorties in the Kherson region. So, they clearly recognize to a certain degree it's important, but I think they're bogged down in Avdiivka. I think they were totally committed to that path of attack through that section of Donetsk, and try to circle around Kharkiv and try to build that out to support Donbass. But I think the Ukrainians have taken them by surprise by crossing the river.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think they're going to I think the whole world, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I had a conversation with Malcolm Nance recently, and Malcolm and I were talking about this very thing. And he and I both agreed the world might wake up one day and see that the Ukrainians have performed some sort of operation that will shock the world. And I think Malcolm's right. I really do. I think the Ukrainians they've been shocking us throughout this war. They've been surprising. Everybody thought this was going to be a 3-day war.
Well,
right?
here's one of the interesting things that I like, and we're getting close to the break or whatever, and this might even sort of qualify as an early happy ending in some ways. But the Swiss president, everybody was worried about the right-leaning presidents that are somehow picking up steam in Europe, with the idea that it's because of the anti-immigration, especially Middle Eastern and North African immigration, because of fears of terrorism that, are stoked around there, that, there's these right-leaning folks that are not Erdogan, they're not Orban, but they're, definitely leaning in that direction. They're, and that's been a big concern, including the Swiss president, which everybody was saying was, a win for their right-leaning group. He visited Bucha recently, and
yes,
and there is a shift in some of these right-leaning governments that a lot of the immigration that they're seeing is caused by the Russians and the Iranians forcing destabilization in these areas to help their cause, and to some degree, like Chinese meddling in Africa is also causing a wave of refugees. And so these guys, if they look to salt the roots of the problem of immigration, it is not the problem of the countries where these people are coming from. It is who is instigating the chaos that is leading to this, and they are all leading back to Russia. And the head of the president of Sweden went and toured Bucha, and the sites where they found that 637 civilians had been killed by the Russians while they were execution style, tortured to death and murdered. And he said, if there's any question that Russia's a terrorist country, that question is answered here. It is. So
I got two real quick things on that. One, in like 2015, give or take, the head of NATO, a guy by the name of Philip Breedlove. Do you remember the Syrian refugee crisis?
Yeah.
He clearly said that they had intelligence that Vladimir Putin was purposefully creating a refugee crisis in the EU to try and destabilize the countries and bring in right-wing extremists. Secondly, even more recently, recently as in like this last week, we have seen Russians bussing in like students and migrant workers from non-white countries, let's just say that, who were in Russia under student visas or temporary work visas. They put them in buses. They drove them as close as they could get to the Finnish border. And then they forced them to walk the rest of the way in snow and ice and sleet, all to create pressure on the Finnish government with all these, exactly. Well, they use it as a weapon.
Well, and by the way, this is not unlike Trump supporting right-wing billionaires and the like who are putting ads in papers in South America saying the American border is open and encouraging them to join these caravans. Or if you have any family, you could just chain migration. Here's video of Donald Trump saying chain migration's a problem, but that's because you can get in and nobody can stop you, which is not true at all. But they play those videos to try and get more people to come do that. And the caravan, by the way, half of them give up because they know it's not true, or people in the caravans that do exist tell them, it's not how it works at all, and they just go back home. But the threat of the caravan, the threat of the incoming immigrants, they use as a cudgel to scare their own voters and to dissuade people in their support of Biden.
It's a very Russian tactic.
It's pretty common. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with some of your questions because we've been chit-chatting this whole time, Johnny Million. We'll be back right after this in your Orioles shirt. It's the Houseworks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, I don't know why people don't recognize that that's a thing, that they are hurting human beings. And it's not the fault of those human beings that, they should be able to stay. Look at Darfur, look at the Sudanese. They, that is Wagner destabilization
on purpose.
On purpose.
And they point them in a direction and they say, go.
Yeah.
And,
or get killed.
This Finnish stuff is just disgusting.
Yeah.
Some of the things they've been doing, because they are they're sweeping up like people of color.
Yep.
Anybody who is non-white, non-European, and who have come to Russia for an education or to send money back to wherever they come from.
Migrant workers.
And they,
too. Yep.
Yeah, they bus them to the Finnish border, the Finnish-Russian border in late November, early December.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's cruelty.
Also that they can put pressure.
How is that not a war crime?
Right.
I would be willing to bet you that there are charges that could be brought against them for doing just that. I mean, the pictures are just lines and lines of people carrying everything that they own.
Yeah, thank you.
Walking through heavy snowstorms. It's just cruelty.
Yeah.
Absolute cruelty. Shame on them.
Yeah. I like that and by the way, not even part of the conversation. Like if anybody on MSNBC or CNN or
I am happy, you are happy, let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky, let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning, I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning, I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! Hooray!
So,
do you have a cone hat like that you could wear sometime?
Well, yeah, we already talked about that. It looks like that doll was made out of one of those like Times Square caricature people drew a picture of Phil and decided to make a doll out of it. It like using the artwork that was used in Beatles cartoons. For those of you that don't see it, yeah, that's what infotainmentwars.com is for. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show in any way that you can, and if you can't, that's okay too. I just hope we inform you and keep your head up during this. There is a. Let's get to some questions because we'll dive in. There's so much to talk about.
Questions. Yeah. The first one is from the birthday boy, Boston Brian.
Oh.
Can you ask Phil about the challenger that Putin has for president?
I suspect what Brian is referring to is Strzalkov.
Mm-hmm.
That's his nom de guerre. His real name is Girkin. He is
he's a pickle. Yeah, from the pickle fortune.
He's a shooting pickle. Strzalkov means to shoot, and Girkin is a pickle. So
I
he's
see.
A shooting pickle.
All right.
He I
don't know. That sounds like a pretty macho Russian name. I would have kept that.
There you go. Don't mess with the shooting pickle. He was the head of the Donetsk militia. So he is a Russian. He used to live in Ukraine, so Ukrainian national by likely. He'll lose. He'll lose. Nobody's going to win against Putin. I mean, Putin. There's an election. There's a presidential election next year. It will not be a real election, even if, as I contend that nobody can survive losing both Odessa and Crimea, they will still be in the fits of the fallout of that. Nobody has been allowed to become proficient, powerful, a well-known enough name, capable of any kind of leadership role beyond something like, a militia or an opposition, a minor opposition group like Navalny.
Right.
Because Putin can't allow it.
Yeah.
So there is nobody to take over after Putin. I mean, nobody reputable. I mean, Navalny included. I have very grave misgivings about Alexander Navalny.
Yeah.
But Putin has created it that way because he wanted it that way.
Sure.
For part of this as an insurance policy, because if not him, then who? So I don't think any opposition leader and Strzalkov had better stay away from drinking teas that he himself has not brewed, or don't stand too close to any windows.
Right.
That's a guy that could disappear very easily and nobody would notice.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a loudmouth little pipsqueak. He really is, and he lost badly in Donbass. He lives in exile in Rostov in Russia properly because he got forced out of Donbass. So
loudmouth little pipsqueak. Man, oh man, I hope that's not on my tombstone. Here lies Johnny. He was a loudmouth little pipsqueak.
Well, you're not.
There you go.
Hey, you're not little. I would just like to say.
True.
And
also, the last I knew, you weren't trying to.
Pipsqueak was a tall drink of water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Yeah, there you go.
What a giant pipsqueak. That doesn't work either. See what I mean? Let's grab another question before we get too deep into it.
Sure, I've got one from Twilight83. Can you ask Philip if he thinks the Ukrainian soldiers that can leave the army will they continue to fight for their homeland?
I think they will leave when the war is over.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mean, like, I hear stories. I was just out in Western Ukraine recently, about 2.5 weeks ago, and I went to what's called the Superhuman Center. And the Superhuman Center is at the very cutting edge of war injury prosthetics, replacement arms, replacement legs. These guys, when I talked to them, they were like, I can't wait to get good enough with my new leg so that I can go out to the front and start and keep fighting. That's not a problem. I mean, look, every war has soldiers. It's a soldier's, it's a soldier's right to complain and whine and not want to be engaged in it. But this entire country is mobilized. I mean, we talked about the 54-year-old woman who was learning to be a drone operator.
Yep.
The country is facing an existential threat. They all know it.
Yeah.
They all know what the Russians are capable of, and they will not abandon their post by and large, and no large numbers. As a matter of fact, they're still at a place where people are coming to fight.
Yeah.
So it's not as big as it was at the beginning. It's pretty brutal out there.
Yeah.
But the more Ukrainians are up for the fight than they're worried about getting conscripted or a knock on the door. Although that does happen.
Cool. Let's grab
another. Let me squeeze in another question here from Tim Farrell. Can you ask Philip the possibility of conscription in Ukraine, and if that may affect support for the war or perhaps cause Ukrainians to leave Ukraine?
Well, there already is conscription for the war. You can get called up. And it's not great. And it's even worse now because there is a desire from the Ukrainians to get these guys in uniform, trained as quickly as possible, and out on the front lines. So there is an argument. I'm hearing it, from a lot of different sectors of people who are like, that's not great. We're not really happy about that. But again, none of this will threaten the leadership of Zelensky or Zaluzhny, the head of the army, nor will it. I mean, the general Ukrainian population right now is still so much behind defending this country, and is still dead set on pushing the Russians back to 91 borders. That even if there are these issues of like, oh, you're not training them enough, or oh, you're grabbing kids, getting a knock on the door in the middle of the night, and my 18-year-old has to go out to train to be a soldier. I'm not crazy about that. Nor, or like the quick pace of training and then you're out on the front lines. All of these criticisms exist. None of them are putting the solidarity and the unified, mobilized nature of this country at risk. Everybody knows what it will mean if the Russians take control of Kiev.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And they don't want it.
Well, especially when they're on television saying Berlin's next. Like, at a certain point, if somebody tells you who they are, all the people who are like, if somebody tells you who they are, believe them, are the same people who are like, I don't know if this is even our fight. Like, yes, it is. You know why? Because the Russians have said so. The Russians have told us it's their fight, that they intend that. What do you think Ruski Mir means? You have congratulations. You're living through probably the first time in your awareness, folks, a time when a world leader and his surrounding cabinet are saying, we need to make this a one world system under us as the superior people. Like that hasn't happened since the 40s, and it wasn't good the last time it happened. So yeah, I don't know. Do we have? I'm sure we have other questions, Johnny Million. But real quick, I just
3 minutes.
Yeah, I just want to show something real quick if I can. It's sort of a happy ending. This is a chart. I'm just showing it real quick online. This is the price of oil with Russia and OPEC Plus lowering their production, trying to raise the price. It has cadavered. It has lost $5 per barrel, and since they started doing this, it is now at $75 a barrel, $75.54, when everybody said it would go to $150. Here's the other part of this story, and this part people wouldn't believe me if I just told them this story. The title of this story is Saudi Arabia raises $11 billion loan to help fund deficit. Can I just read that again? Saudi Arabia raises $11 billion loan to help fund deficit. Think about all the people who think that oil will buy our way out of our financial woes, and that'll be the only fix we need, Donald Trump. And understand that I just read to you a real headline about Saudi Arabia having a deficit. And then, of course, third to that, this would be the answer to this. Oil falls as OPEC Plus seeks to resolve pre-meeting output dispute. Because apparently not everybody is on board with cutting output because they need the money. And Russia and Saudi Arabia want to manipulate the market. They want to affect supply instead of responding to demand. So all the other countries that's the only thing they've got to sell are wigging out. All right, I ate up all of our time. I'm sorry, that was my bad. But that needed to be said. I just thought that headline was amazing. And you might start to understand why Russia, Iran, which is, by the way, Iran, Saudi Arabia's enemy, why they're starting to line up. They're getting cozy. And this axis.
Let me just squeeze in one more question, Hal.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Important.
Real quick.
It's from somebody named Caleb Rapaport.
Oh.
And they want to know if you're available for a Nerd Hailing gig in LA on February 10th.
Of course.
That's a big yes, Caleb.
Yeah.
Keep shredding.
Yeah.
My God, you're so good.
He's very good. He's very good, that kid. He's got legs. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks everybody.
Everyone.
Happy holidays.
Thanks.
That's so funny. He had to ask in chat.
I know. I was like, are you really asking his availability?
That's
in YouTube
hilarious.
Chat? And he's like, yeah.
Sure.
When I saw it fly by, I was like, wait, that's Caleb.
Oh, that was today at 11 a.m. LA King Fest. It's February 10th. 3:20 minutes. Yeah. Uh-huh. As long as I get a jersey that says Waldo on the back of it, or Nerd Halen. There you go. So literally just coming up during this show. All right. Anyways, you guys are awesome. I got to go join the family. They all left me behind and went over to the other house for
oh no,
my cousin's.
Go catch up.
It's my cousin's birthday today. So we're gonna go over there and hang.
Happy birthday, cuz.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Boston Brian. Thanks.
Yep.
Hang in there, Phil.
That's right.
Yep.
Keep your head down.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Be safe. Take care. We'll see you next time. All right. Bye. And chat room, thank you guys so much. Love you guys. Appreciate it more than you even know. On days when I am ice skating uphill against the technology of wherever I am, it's always, it's I don't feel like I get enough time to tell you guys thank you and how much I appreciate you. So I think I just want to take that moment if I could. And we'll see you guys later. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else and have a great holiday weekend. Hey, we did a show. It worked. I can't believe it.